You are listening to Moonhawk Studios Presents.
All right, welcome to another edition of Moonhawk Studios Presents on the Correct Night.
Yay!
I am your host, Mac Paladin. With me in the studio, as always, is my good friend Adam.
Is it proper to call it MSP this week, though?
Yes, we're still doing Moonhawk Studios Presents. That's how we debuted your show.
Fair enough, fair enough. Right. More on that in a bit.
We got Elemental Ogre here.
This special episode brought to you by Smarty Juice. Smarty Juice. Drink it and enjoy the childlike programs you imagine in your head from these side effects.
Okay, card gauge.
Prude me in, Coach Z. Coach Z.
I think we can end on that note. Good night, everybody. All right, as if we could top that, Petty Fan is here.
I exist, yes.
The Galix is lurking around.
I am.
And we got Twilight Winter in the hizzy.
Hello.
And joining as a special guest star tonight, I'm going to introduce to you one of the new co-hosts of the prospective Last News Desk on the Left. Kevin, how do you say your last name?
Grusing. G-R-U-S-S-I-N-G. It's
All right.
German.
Kevin
It
Bruce.
happens. Yeah,
Yep.
A lot of people mispronounce it as Grussing all the time. It happens.
Well, you probably won't get that mistake from me since my last name is Prokop, P-R-O-K-O-P, and
Yeah,
my ancestors hail from the Czech Republic, so
yeah.
a country that was overrun by Germany, and that just got uncomfortable.
Oh, well.
The old Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
All right, tonight we're going to diverge from normal format and give you a look at what might be. Before we get to that, though, we're going to stick to format. See how I give everybody a rope it up? I put you on the ropes, and then I just give you the brrr. All right, Adam, why don't you start us off with the news before I massacre that any further?
All right. My news this week. It's still getting fragments in order. Straighten that out as best as I could. You know, it's like, we didn't have a guest on the Fragments show this week because dealing with people from Japan is very difficult time-wise.
Oof. Especially since they're like, 26 hours ahead or something?
I'm like, well, it was our evening is their morning, like mid-morning. Like they wanted to do it late morning, but I couldn't move the show up because that would have cut into this program. And,
right.
You know,
it's like 10 hours ago, 24 hours in the future. Wait, what?
Yeah, so it was like couldn't reach an agreement. So we are also. We're also planning on having Bandai Namco on the program this week, but that got moved to next week.
No.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, we know people at Bandai Namco. Like, the roads this path takes you. Like,
I just got an announcement that one of my favorite characters is now available on the Rays.
Anyway,
no, literally, I just got the push notification, so it fits.
Let's see. We did like 4 reviews last Sunday and Wednesday. Once again, that's what happens when you miss a production week. Shit piles up.
Yeah, well, you got to watch out for your new friends. That, and when I say new friends, I mean hurricanes.
Well.
Because God damn it, we named them.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see. Well, all that's in order. Been getting things ready for November. Doing a thing in a couple days. Uh, that may take all day. It may take half the day. I don't know yet. And yeah, that's what's going on with me. Ogre, why don't you go?
Let's see. Last Thursday, we finally beat Hallercanassus in O3S, which there was many, much loud shouting about, to the point that I woke my mom up from her sleep. I'm pretty sure my dad pooped himself, and the cat disappeared for about an hour or so. Which, after 2 months worth of smashing the head against the wall on this boss, yeah, that was well-deserved loud shouting matches there. So we pretty much got that fight down to the point that we actually did the 1 through 3 yesterday, and we only wiped 3 times during that whole thing. At least I think it was 3 times.
I'd have to go look.
I remember there was like a non-starter in there somewhere, but...
Mm-hmm.
But yay, we're getting competent at a video game. Petty stole all my shit yesterday.
The loot is mine.
Well, whatever, I'll get it eventually. Let's see, Let's Plays are going fine. Did a small thing. Gonna do a big thing. It's all kind of up in the air, really. After Color Splash turned into 6 months, you kind of go, you know, fuck it, we'll just do whatever.
It amazes me how much Color Splash drains you of life.
It's kind of amazing how much longer Color Splash was than I was expecting.
Well, I know what happened there. Naka didn't double up on the episodes.
Yeah, it just made it longer.
Yeah, it's like usually when you do the RPG thing, there's like, what, 2-3 episodes a day?
Usually 2 episodes. But I think like the format was like 10 to 15 minutes, so you could get through everything faster.
Yeah.
So he just did the 1 episode, like,
yeah.
You know, next thing you know, it's 6 months later.
But after we were done doing that, my car got a flat tire. Finally, I should say. Well,
like you're acting like you were waiting for it.
Well, the thing is that the front right tire had something wrong with it for so long that it was constantly losing air. Like I could pump it up to 40 psi, and it would be down to 10 before the end of the month. And we just never got it checked out because I could always pump it back up and it'd be fine. But this Monday, it was way flatter than usual, and as I was driving back from Naka's place, I heard crumble, 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 and it went like, oh, that's a flat tire. So I pulled off to the side of the road, had to get the car towed, took it to a mechanic to replace the tire and everything, and turned out that a hole had just opened up in the tire, which I'm assuming the thing was just waiting for the day that it just went like, oh, thank God I can die now.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second there. Kevin, are you on the road?
Me? Hold on a second. Damn it! Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
There was a lot of background noise there for a minute.
Yeah, the microphone USB thing went dead for a second. Sorry about that.
Okay. Sorry, Ogre. Please proceed.
Go ahead.
So, got that all resolved and new tires on and everything, so I don't have to worry about that. Though, kind of pissed me off that it was how I had to deal with everything. It's like, couldn't have waited until I got home and taken care of that. No, it just had to conk out. Barely out of that damn city, so...
I've been lucky. Last time I had a tire blow, it was literally right across the street from a tire replacement place.
The thing was, there were 3 dealerships on that road across the street where I parked at, so it wasn't like I was wanting, but we went to a mechanic that we kind of trust because he's pretty good with his pricing, so we got everything down to like $90 for the whole thing. And the towing was covered. And the towing was covered by the insurance, so whatever deals with that.
It's also pretty amazing when you have a flat tire blow out there, Teddy.
That was Gollix.
Gollix.
God
No,
damn
I
it,
I
Mac.
had a tire that, whatever.
That's
But,
okay. That was wrong on several levels.
Yep.
Yeah, we're about
That
to
was-
start a drinking game every time he mistakes me for Golix. Spoiler, he'll die.
It's about as equal
I
as
was-
much
I
as
was
every
looking
time.
away.
About as equal as much as every time when we have to make sure Elk hits that red check button. He didn't hit it. Take another drink. Duh. Why do we keep fucking up this boss?
Both of our tanks are drunk off their ass.
They're both into briars. What the shit?
The ass is safe.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So
All right.
off
Uh,
drinking more Smarty juice.
There you go. Teddy, what have you got? The real Teddy fan.
Not the fake one.
Not the one that's actually the Gollix.
Well, seeing how we don't have a guest this week, I've been having trouble finding guests, so that's fun. Aside from that, I tried to boot up my PlayStation Portable today, and the battery is shot. So apparently, a new one of those is like $10 if I want to get a normal one, or I can look into getting an extended battery pack. So, Amazon doesn't say. They just have a placeholder for it.
Generic.
Yeah. And aside from that, not a whole lot's been going on. Just kind of waiting, like, the end of October or beginning of November, we're going to be looking into getting new phones. So that's going to be exciting. Going to be finally rid of this piece of crap LG G4.
Oh boy.
Other than that, I think I'm good. Next victim.
All right, Gollix. Offer yourself up on the altar of comedy.
Unfortunately, I'm not super funny, so we'll try. It's been pretty warm and humid this week. I think it's probably mostly because the hurricanes left us with some humid, and then they went away, and it got warm before it got dry. I don't know exactly what's up with that, but it's been kind of a pain. I've been feeling a little bit sleepy during the days, and I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't been going to sleep any later than usual, but we'll see what's up with that. I've been playing the new Metroid game when I can play video games aside from the ones that I need to play for fragments. It's pretty good, but I'm glad that I've gotten to the part of the game where I'm strong enough that I no longer need to melee counter every enemy. I mean, I get that it's a cool gimmick, but they made it way too necessary, I think. Let's see. I've generally failed to have any major disasters in my life, so I guess I don't have that much funny to say.
Okay. Twilight.
Well, it's been warm, humid, but relatively nice otherwise around here. And with October coming in and the start of fall, tourism has been picking up around here with the coming of our local autumn festivals. Yeah. Besides that, not really much has been going on around here. I've been playing games for for fragments, and that's about it for me.
All right. Well, let's get an introduction from our new friend Kevin here. tell the rabid fans all about you.
Well, I'm from the city of New Bern, North Carolina, which is actually the birthplace of Pepsi, for what it's worth.
Oh.
I'm from a military family, my father was in the military for about 20 years before he retired. It's been last decade for me has been quite a story. I'd rather not go into those details because I don't know who's listening. I will say, however, that
our 10.
well, I will say that my sister is in the military herself now. So my dad's had to deal with that, along with a certain situation that forces us to be here for the next 2 years. Hint, hint, hint. And as for myself, I was diagnosed on the spectrum at age 3. So my life's been pretty much wild and crazy on that front.
Lucky. It's better to get it early than to be, all that shit we've been diagnosing you with throughout all elementary school. Turns out it was actually this.
Well, technically, technically I needed a second opinion in order to ensure that I wasn't in an institution. So, and it was at a time.
No fun.
Yeah, and it was at a time in which where nobody really knew what the heck autism pretty much was.
Similar with me and ADHD. Oh, just keep throwing meds at them. What's that? You stop breathing in your sleep?
Yeah. Oh, God. Okay, I never did that.
Well, actually, you know what? Let me go detail then. I was diagnosed by functioning autism, Asperger's syndrome. They were separate at the time. Now they're the same thing. I also was diagnosed with ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and hyperlexia.
Yeah.
At the same time.
But other than that, you're just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of possibly why I'm, as what I am. But about a decade, and then like a decade ago, my mom had a medical malpractice incident, and she slowly, I had to watch as my mom slowly left the plane, if you will. So, yeah, my life has been pretty weird. And then, of course, it's ever since my dad got out of prison. So, yeah, I'll say that. It's been pretty crazy around here. It feels like, it doesn't feel like it's active. It's more like lazy days for the most part. But and it's only after everything's pretty much calmed down. Now we're pretty much self-sufficient. We're pretty much waiting for my dad's parole to knock out in 2019 before moving out of here. Because let's just say we'd rather not live in a hurricane-prone part of the state, and would rather be close to family. And basically my days are consistent of long FaceTimes with my boyfriend and watching Cops and ESPN. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty much.
Also, something Cheeto Monster.
So, if you're wondering,
go ahead.
Right, so if you're wondering, I've known Kevin for a few years now on Twitter, and he's one of my major sources for political news. Just saying something because I've got a lot of political sources. So when we were coming up with the last news desk concept, I figured he'd be a good fit for it.
Well,
which is weird because I'm a podcast novice, shall we say?
Well, that's why we're running the show. We're 9-year amateurs here.
Yeah, like pretty much everybody who's come in here, is an amateur. Like, it's like outside of Sobi, and
yeah. I mean, was she actually here?
It's like she lasted 10 episodes at that. No.
9.5, maybe.
Yeah. I'm like, point is, the experience thing isn't that much of a factor in this outfit.
Yeah. Thankfully.
Commitment to the bit is, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we're intentionally a comedy show, but it ends up being funny.
Yeah.
Every
Comedy of
week,
errors, more like it.
I mean, speaking of us all being amateurs, I think to myself, man, every week is amateur hour around here.
If we didn't laugh,
Jo-
we would have to cry.
Jokes is
Yeah, I suppose it
Jokes
depends on the
aside.
program.
Jokes aside, we've been doing this for 8 years.
Mm.
And Adam has some college radio experience, so I mean that's as professional as we're gonna get.
Yeah.
And
That'll help.
we all have opinions and express them regularly. So.
Yeah.
Considering how legitimate podcasting is these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm probably the second closest to Adam because I have a little bit of high school theater,
Right.
so I
Well,
at
this
least
show.
deal with people.
Plus,
Well, I've always been part of crew. As far as theater and stuff like that, I've been part of the crew. I'm usually behind the scenes. I'm either a director or producer, writer, et cetera, et cetera. So that's usually where my forte lies. Trust me, the first 6 episodes of this show, starting to wonder if we were going to make it to 12 for a little while. Touch and go for a bit. Somebody really passive aggressively ripped us a new asshole, and then one of our co-hosts decided that he was never going to stop talking about it.
oh God, so many incidents with him, so many horrible memories.
And yet they keep coming back to us.
Well,
Ogre has vivid memories of stuff he was never privy to.
After I started drinking Smarty Juice, I don't remember much.
Well, there's also the Fragments of Silicon show, which is a much more professional product. In that, we have people from the games industry on there all the time.
Well, the intention was to have professional people on this show too, but petty fan.
Hey, I tried, damn it.
Like,
Try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
I'm like, if you need more people, like maybe we have more people in our YouTube thingies or whatever.
Well, I mean,
Anyway,
not to put too fine a point on it, dude. I know you haven't really had a lot of practice on this, but I scooped up 4 guests in an hour.
Wow.
Last season, just to fill time. So it's not impossible to do. You just got to cast a wide net. And you got to be willing to put out 20, 30, 40 and if all of them happen to respond or none of them happen to respond, to hell with it. You just got to do it.
yeah, like with Fragments, I was sending out like an invite or 2 a day recently to shore up November. Like, it's sometimes having too many guests is a better problem than having none at all. Is what I'm getting at.
Ah, yes, first world problems. I mean, look, Petty, we're not trying to beat up on you or anything like that. We're trying to make the point here that we're not doing anything special. I'm not breaking my arm, patting myself on the back that I got 4 guests. I'm saying that you just got to kind of throw it out there and not worry about whether or not they respond or what. I get that it's overwhelming sometimes. You're like, oh God, what if I get 10 responses? What do I do? Well, as they say in the business, pack them and rack them. It's like, okay, well, I know I offered you this particular date. What you want to do is you want to say the show is this day of the week, and we have shows coming up. And then when they respond, say, okay, I now have this show available. Can you come?
Yeah. I usually, the introductory emails, I have availabilities in like September and onward or October and onward now.
Well, it might be better just to throw out a much simpler message and say we have a Wednesday night podcast and we'd like you to be part of the show. Maybe if you respond to us, we can talk about scheduling your actual date.
Fair enough.
I think that would probably be easier and less cumbersome. So, all right. Well, let me get on to my news, so that way it's not the beat up petty fan hour here, because that was not the tangent I was hoping to go on tonight. Lots of stuff going on. I don't know if you guys have seen it either on my Facebook or if it got aggregated to my Twitter feed or not, but I've decided to forward my art career. I don't believe that I can rely on retail as a stable source of income basically going forward. And it's not just the place where I work right now. That place has its own unique problems of stability, but what it really boils down to is I've done this for 22 years.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like I've made no level ups in life. You know, I got the girlfriend milestone, and that lasted about 5 years and then evaporated because everything else I'm doing isn't quite ambitious enough. So,
I think I saw this on Facebook.
Yep. So, you know, I'm going to be talking about this and flogging it on the program a lot, where I'm going to be talking about doing artistry. I finally completed a commission that's been sitting on my docket for 2 years. So, well, you know, a lot of the cloud of anxiety, it's kind of funny, you know, because like so many on this program, I am also on the spectrum. And it's very, very difficult for me to self-motivate unless the shit hits the fan. And then all of a sudden I'm extraordinarily motivated to the point of almost being frantic. But it paid off because my natural charisma score of 20 allowed me to score some new commissions. So, you know, there is actually money coming in besides my regular job. And that here's a shock. I also stopped underselling myself. Because that was something I used to do tragically in the old days, was like, well, I'll open up a couple of slots and we'll do them for $10 because, you know, who the hell's going to buy my stuff, right? Am I right? Those days are over. You want a pinup from me, it's $100. And you know what? People are buying them. I am doing a special promotion right now. It's sort of an inaugural event for me launching my career. Each of the venues that I produce, I am offering 2 slots at a 40% discount off of my regular rate. Typical pinup will be full color, single character, up to 2 maximum. For that price, obviously, additional fees will apply if you add additional characters. However, with the 40% discount, before you start adding extras and so on and so forth, you're looking at $60. And that's actually a pretty damn good deal. Ever since I started learning digital tools and stuff, the quality of my artwork has improved significantly. You know, it's one of those things where I would say in terms of skill level, I'm probably dead middle of the pack. But here's the thing. People who are at the top of the heap charge a lot more than $100, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you want Sakimi-chan level, you know, you're going to probably pay about anywhere from $400 to $1,500 for the same thing, except at obviously a lot shinier quality. So I don't think I'm asking an unreasonable rate, but at the same time, like I said, this is sort of an inaugural event, so I'm offering a one-time discount to my fans, followers on Facebook, my followers on DeviantArt. What other venue did I promise? Oh, and Patreon patrons are also being extended this discounted rate. So naturally, my parents don't think much of this career choice. They prefer that I have a, quote, real job with a large corporation, because those aren't dropping dead like flies right now, aren't they?
Yeah, especially in the retail sector.
Holy shit. Toys R Us, the bedrock of the retail community, is taking a huge shit. FAO Schwartz, one of the largest specialty retailers in existence, probably dead by December.
Yeah.
You could always go into coal. I hear that's a booming industry.
Only if you're talking about mine explosions, Ogre. Get it? Booming industry. Anyway, so this is what I've decided to do. I've decided to very aggressively pursue it and use my God-given charm to actually solicit people. This is something that most artists don't do because most of them are recluses. Now, of course, me, I'm a snake. I'm Year of the Snake under the element of fire, so I must shine brightly or die. That is my nature, and so sitting back and just waiting for people to come to me is not my style. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to bang on doors and I'm going to say, "Hey, you person that buys a lot of artwork from people that I know, would you like to try my stuff?"
Kind of the philosophy we have on getting guests on these programs. It doesn't, it's like stature doesn't matter. Shit. We had Richard Epcar on our program last season.
And he still talks to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, and yes, the worst thing that can happen is they say no.
Pretty
Well,
much.
technically, the worst thing that can happen is we could have another team meet fiasco, but let's not get into that.
Well, that's kind of separate from getting them on the show.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Indeed. I'm going to check right now, see how many views that Starship Moonhawk's first episode has. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Part 1 says 355 views, which is mildly impressive considering that our original preview of it capped out at 256, so we're already almost 100 over our all-time high. So bravo for that. Considering might have an advertising budget of Jack and shit, and Jack just left town. I'm pretty pleased with that. If we could get that to 500 in the next few weeks, that would be pretty amazing, I would think. My goal is to get it to 2,000 views, and then we're going to start shopping around for actual investors. Say, hey, look, through sheer grit and force of will, we got this video over 2,000 views. And all the reviews of it so far have been extraordinarily positive. Now, of course, obviously, if I want to send it to the critics, I got to grease some palms with silver. And that's not happening anytime soon. I tried to submit it for the Webby Awards, and for all the categories I wanted to submit it to, it would be a mere $2,996.98. Yeah, apparently you buy your way into the award shows now.
So, I believe you have a political rant here at some point.
Right.
Oh, boy.
So one of the things we were going to talk about tonight, besides introducing Kevin to the masses, was give a little bit of a sneak peek of some of the things that we were intending to do with Last News Desk on the Left, which is our prospective new podcast, political left-leaning, because you don't have enough people out there frothing at the mouth about left-wing issues.
Sure don't.
Which is actually true. There aren't as many as you would think. All the left-wingers are trying to sound rational and sane, and meanwhile, all of the conservative guys are getting ratings up the wazoo by basically peddling the apocalypse.
Yeah, pretty much doing the same thing they've done since, what, the 80s.
Time immemorial.
Time immemorial.
No, post-Watergate, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for us, it's time immemorial because that predates all of our existence.
Correct.
So basically what I had planned to do was, and this is somewhat informal right now because I don't have a writing staff or anything like that, but I was going to try to pick a topic every week, assuming I ever had time, and write a little rant about it. So on Facebook the other day, I posted a little bit. It seems like for some reason yesterday and the day before, Facebook finally caught up with the news cycle and started nattering about Colin Kaepernick and his disrespect towards the flag and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of the people I see who are, you know, so-called true patriots,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people claiming to have military service and, you know, deep-rooted respect for the flag and what it stands for, have been going on Facebook and waving the bloody shirt, which drives me fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And that could
I've seen some very interesting posts referencing the actual U.S. flag code.
right,
Mm-hmm.
which interestingly enough is usually our more liberal friends coming out and saying, "Hey, yeah, you fucking morons, this is not how it is." You know, so you could probably expect something a little like this. In response to someone in dire need of a civics lesson, being American cannot simply be reduced to served or didn't serve. That's the BS argument that Heinlein satirized in Starship Troopers when they talked about citizens and civilians. When the commies come to my door and try to take my land and liberty, I'll be waiting for them with guns blazing. Then you will see if I bleed red, white, and blue. But it is insulting to us all to suggest that somehow being in uniform for pay makes someone else somehow more American than me or anyone else. No uniform, and certainly no rag on a pole, can grant me that grace. And people quietly taking a knee in genuflection certainly cannot take that away from me or your family members who have served. Now, at this point, if that was the sum total of the rant, we would open the floor to discussion.
But it's not.
Well, the idea being that you guys would hear my rant for the first time on the program, so that way I could get fresh reactions. So whether you agree or disagree with me is not the point.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, how do you feel about the issues discussed in the rant, that kind of thing.
Right.
My rants would probably be about 2 to 3 minutes in length.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of other items. I actually could have created a formal rant from several different responses on the same topic, but I didn't want to jump around on different threads on Facebook to piece it all together.
Right.
But that's kind of the general gist of it, is that I would write something like that and, you know, practice it a few times so that I can get that sort of polished feel that you just heard in there, where I emphasize keywords and stuff like that.
Right.
And then we would open up the floor for discussion. Now, since we are doing a sort of test of all of the elements of the show, you guys may feel free to comment on what I just said there.
Well, I guess I'll go first.
All right.
Well, the whole Colin Kaepernick situation has been shifting dynamics, and that's really worrisome. I mean, so because, you know, Cheeto Hitler over there decided to stick his nose into this business, and now, predictably, it's becoming all about him.
Yep.
And, you know, it's like taking the knee isn't about what it actually is about, and that's, you know, racial injustice, brutal excessive force by the police, what have you. It's now being a pro-Trump or an anti-Trump statement.
Right.
And I guess those issues do go along with Trump, but it wasn't Trump specifically, because Colin took the knee during the Obama era.
A year ago.
Yeah. It's all about you, isn't it?
It really is. Like, you know, it's one of the more frustrating aspects of Trump, and that is saying something. It's got to be all about him.
Always.
You know, bad or good. It's, you know,
Right.
You know, and... Or sometimes he wants to make it about him even when it's not, like what we're dealing with right here.
Yeah, it's like...
Hey. I resemble that remark.
Yeah, it's like... So, now the discussion is getting shifted into, you know, patriotism, and... Well, granted, that was being used as a shield beforehand, but now it's really been exacerbated because, you know, the President of the United States decided to have an opinion on this, a predictable one.
Predictable.
Yeah. Like,
I pointed out that nowhere in the Constitution does it state that we have to stand and salute for any cockamamie symbol of liberty that
None.
so-called represents this country. In fact,
That-
the founding fathers themselves would probably have taken umbrage with the idea of canonizing and deifying our military, and basically creating a quasi-religion around iconography of
Yeah.
so-called freedom. I mean, if we want to invoke Godwin's law tonight, let's put it all on the table here. There was another group that fetishized eagles as a symbol of national strength too. They were called the Nazis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Although using an eagle as a national symbol goes back to the Romans, which is where the
True.
Nazis stole the idea. By the
Right,
way.
but everything that they did, from marching in columns to carrying around eagles and having vibrant colors, and even having brilliant Italian designers make their uniforms for
Yeah, the Nazis stole a lot of stuff from other cultures. Is what I'm getting
Mhm.
at.
Yeah.
Oh, indeed.
But yeah,
I'd also point out that a lot of the owners that we saw over the weekend kneeling, Jerry Jones, Sabir Khan, some of those people, they donated to Trump's inauguration. And for a long period of time, these same owners were going around and saying what Colin Kaepernick was doing for a couple of months was a distraction. And let's remind everybody here, Colin Kaepernick is not employed at all right now.
Right.
like
This was his protest. Other people are now twisting that protest completely away from what it was, and now it's about
so
protecting the National Football League shield against Donald Trump, who, by the way, has been for a long time a thorn in the NFL side. Let me remind everybody also, this guy used to own a team on a startup league back in the 80s called the USFL. And there was a documentary that ESPN did a couple years ago, Small Potatoes, Who Killed the USFL, and it was him. Because he pushed the USFL, which was originally created to be a spring football league, to take advantage of the post-Super Bowl period in between the Super Bowl and the start of the NFL season and college football season, as its own thing. It had a big television contract with ABC and ESPN, and Donald Trump was the owner of the Generals, the New York, New Jersey team. He wanted to push the league to fall against the NFL, which would be a completely suicidal move, and it was, because he said, nobody cares about football in spring, they care about baseball. And there was a big fight internally between Trump and the owner of the Tampa Bay franchise, the Bandits, who was going, hey, if you move us to fall, it will kill us. Well, about, I think, the second season, that same owner of the Bandits got cancer and was dying. And there's a lot of stuff out there about Trump being an asshole to this guy as he was dying. And then the moment that he died, the USFL completely caved in and went to Trump. And immediately after that, Trump sued the NFL. And it ended with the USFL winning, but they only got like $1 in the reward, because they were seeking like millions of dollars, but they only got $1, which was then doubled to like $3.99. And obviously, because of all the legal bills, the fact that the USFL was was on shaky ground overall, the USFL completely collapsed and died. So, and then fast forward to a couple years ago, 2014, when Trump wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills after the longtime owner of that franchise, Ralph Wilson, died. It was up for sale. It was between him, the eventual owners, the Pagula family, which owned the Sabres, the NHL team, and the minute that Trump was rejected by the NFL, he went on a tirade against the NFL on Twitter. So when we think about this whole Trump NFL thing, let's keep in mind that Trump has been very much someone who has hated the National Football League for the majority of his life. This is another one of those things where Trump is going after one of his enemies. It's
Indeed.
another one of those things.
And all I can think of unironically is singing Toby Keith saying, "How do you like me now?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, when Jerry Jones when Jerry Jones kneeled, if you notice, he smiled and looked to the camera. As if to say, I know you're watching, Donald, and I know you hate this. Shut up.
So, on the flip side, this Take a Knee protest has become vastly more popular because before Trump got into the mix, it was actually a thing that was happening, but nobody was paying attention.
In fact, I would dare to say that it was starting to taper off, die down, and not be as big as it was. But then Trump got involved. Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, I'm like, he's made it a flashpoint because, as it turns out, there are a lot of people who hate Donald fucking Trump.
Isn't it like 70% of the country now?
If you want to have a,
I said 67%.
And if you want to make sure that you know which side people are on, just have Donald Trump come on down on one side of an issue, and you'll find out exactly how many people are on the opposite side of it.
Well, it's also like as Keith Olbermann said today, you really can't remain neutral when it comes to Trump, because he's going to drag you in one way or another to see the Pittsburgh Penguins. They put out.
If I could also see NASCAR. Okay? If I could get into this for a minute, because I have a confession to make. I'm a liberal NASCAR fan.
Is that illegal?
Well, it shouldn't be, because I know for a fact, as we've all seen, that pretty much I am totally against the politics of NASCAR. Completely. Yet I love the sport. So, having said that, like, for 20 years, pretty much, the number one thing NASCAR has been trying to do is trying to build its audience. And the reason for that is obvious to everybody who knows what NASCAR is. It's been a long-time sport for white, Southern, pretty much Trumpian country.
Yep.
And for drivers, and for like 20 years, they've been trying to bust those stereotypes. Drivers like Jeff Gordon from California, and even some of the Southern drivers themselves have been trying to present a different image of NASCAR because they want to stay in business.
Right.
So imagine my disgust and disappointment when two of the biggest owners in the sport, Richard Childress and Richard Petty, come out. Childress says that if Childress comes out and says that anybody who protests that works for me, I'm going to put them on a Greyhound bus. And Richard Petty, the most winningest driver in NASCAR, who, by the way, right now is trying to find sponsorship to fund a team for a black driver, Darrell Wallace Jr., a.k.a. Bubba Wallace, comes out and then says that anybody who protests, who works for him, should get out of the country.
Well, I guess we don't have a Petty fan no more.
Now, obviously, those comments spread like wildfire. And it gets picked up outside of the NASCAR bubble. Because obviously in a situation like, in a sport like NASCAR, which is regional and southern, there is a bubble. There is a bubble that refuses to understand that you need to get people outside of that bubble if you want to survive. Like, you've seen, like, in the last couple of years, sponsors refusing to come in. NASCAR's top series is the Cup Series. It had a 10-year agreement, 10 years, with originally Nextel, but then Sprint bought it, and Sprint got on board with that. Coming out of that, they then signed a 2-year agreement with the Monster Energy drink. So it's obvious. So it's a smaller deal with less money. And then you have drivers who are not getting big time sponsors, and you have a situation where, has anybody here heard of Danica Patrick?
Yes.
Okay.
Vaguely.
GoDaddy, as well as one of the first female professional drivers in NASCAR.
Well, that's going to be changing because more than likely she's out of the sport. Because this year she had a bit of a problem. She no longer is sponsored by GoDaddy. That contract ended after last season. So this season she was going to have a new sponsor, a sponsor that basically was a newbie to the sport. Not a lot of people heard about it, and it turns out that there was a leak. They had to go to court because they couldn't pay for it. And it really doesn't help matters much when Danica Patrick hasn't really performed up to the expectation.
Yeah.
So she's out of the sport. The sole woman driver is out of the sport. And now you have a situation also where probably the top minority driver is of Japanese descent. His name is Kyle Larson. He was sponsored by Target until the end of this season because Target is getting out of the motorsports business. So they're having trouble they're having to find sponsor for him. And like I said earlier, Bubba Wallace, Darrell Wallace Jr., the only black NASCAR driver this year, lost his ride in the second tier series, which is known as the Xfinity Series, for a lack of sponsorship, despite the fact that he was top 10 in the point standings when that team was disbanded. He then right now moved to Richard Petty Motorsports to drive the 43 on a temporary basis as their main driver was injured in an accident for a couple of weeks. He's being groomed to replace that same driver who's leaving that team at the end of the year. They're trying to find sponsors for Bubba Wallace right now because the sponsor that has been sponsoring the 43 car for 5 years is leaving after this season because they don't want to sponsor the black driver.
Wow.
So then you figure Richard Petty comes out and says what he says, and you got to imagine, corporate America doesn't want to touch, a hot stove, as it were. They don't want to dabble in controversial stuff. So you can imagine the possibility that corporate America doesn't come to the 43 car, and either that team disbands or they choose another driver to fill that seat to get a sponsor. And all of a sudden, the possibility exists that that black driver will have to have a part-time or a part-time ride in the Cup Series or the Xfinity Series or a full-time ride in the second-tier series when he could have easily had a top-tier ride in the top series. NASCAR right now is in deep trouble.
I will concede that this is far more complicated than I had imagined NASCAR to be.
It is. It seems very simple because it's cars driving around in a circle or in an oval or on a road course for 150, 300, 500, 600 miles.
As I once read, it's a bunch of guys making a lot of left turns.
Right. It seems simple, but the business of NASCAR is very complicated. It is sponsorship driven, it is corporate driven, and it is television driven. Contracts with Fox and NBC are in the billions, despite the fact that ratings are in the basement right now, and has been this season, despite the fact it's the playoffs, quote unquote. It is the reason why NASCAR decided to institute a playoff system to try to spur excitement, interest, whatever. And
Also, why they instituted this stage system because people would just turn off the race in the middle.
Right, exactly. That too. So it's been trying to build up the audience and build up the audience on a national basis, not a regional basis, a national basis. But the problem is that they are very laissez-faire on the on-track stuff, the stuff that's outside of the race, that's the overall weekend. Like, you see like all these races having pre-race concerts, and the acts they choose are country, specifically of a type that a lot of people don't like outside of the core audience of NASCAR.
Mhm.
So automatically that's a problem. And then a lot of the times there are races where the racing is boring, the racing isn't as exciting, even to NASCAR fans.
Yeah.
So you have that problem. And you combine all that up with now the fact that NASCAR has specifically put itself square in Trump's bandwagon. Brian France, who is the head man of NASCAR, endorsed Trump. That was very, very divisive. You had drivers and owners coming up for Trump too. So pretty much everybody outside of the NASCAR bubble now puts NASCAR in Trump's basket, especially after what Richard Petty and Richard Childress said, and the fact that Trump came out and tweeted, "Hey, thanks NASCAR for having my back on the subject."
All right. All right, so we're getting low on time here. So
I'm sorry, I tend to go off.
It's fine.
it's fine.
We got an hour-long format, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk a little bit about layout, format, and all that stuff real quick before we wrap for the week. And Petty, you said
I had to let that go.
No, that was good. That was all good. Every bit of that was good.
I had to let it out because I've been holding it back because I needed to get my yayas out on this. It's ticked me off all week.
So, what our general plan is this: going forward, whenever we settle on the night time for the show, we're going to settle for probably an hour format, minimum 30 minutes, and it will be me, Adam, Ogre, and Kevin as hosts. Now, that doesn't mean that Petty and Twilight and Golix are derelict on this, because Petty Fan will still be handling the technicals.
All right.
But as associate producers, they're also going to be helping us with moderating the channel, because I can already see we're probably going to get some trolling.
Oh, boy.
So I'm going to need you guys in the background working behind the scenes trying to moderate the channel and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to need to figure out how to give us mod rights on YouTube anyway.
Yep, exactly. So that's basically what it will be. I'll lead the show with introductions and the rant, and our three main co-hosts and panelists will dissect the argument, and I'll offer commentary where I can, etc., etc. So that's the general idea of the whole thing. Obviously, we will be a left-wing leaning podcast. I'm probably the bridge, since I identify as left-wing libertarian, which a lot of people don't believe that actually exists. That's actually, I think that's hilarious that you can't be socially liberal and fiscally conservative and be forced to be called either a moderate or a right-wing loony. That's just not who I am.
Yeah.
I am all about taking care of people. I just expect our country to find some rational way to pay for it.
Right.
That's my politics.
I don't think that's even that fiscally conservative.
No,
Certainly
not.
compared to the position that all of the fiscally conservative or allegedly fiscally conservative people, that are in positions of power in the country currently seem to be in.
Yeah.
Just that the government does not have any money to spend.
And you will hear a lot of lectures from me about political correctness, and you'll hear a lot of lectures from me about misappropriation of religious ideals and iconography as they are put forward by our so-called government. Notice when I use phraseology like that, that's the libertarian in me coming out.
Yeah.
He was raised Catholic, so.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
There will be cat antics. There will be some silly stuff, but generally speaking, I believe it'll be a more serious tone podcast than what you're used to from this crew. So,
We be pretty damn serious when we want to be.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I'm hoping that our fans and listeners will be looking forward to this. A number of us have egged this on to actually go ahead and do this based on some of our more choice rants over the years.
Yeah.
It was basically the 2016 election year that precipitated this. I mean,
Yeah, the 2016 election year that keeps on coming. It seems like we're never going to leave 2016.
Yeah, the 2016 election made everybody political, whether you wanted to be or not.
Yeah. And we'll probably talk more about the flag code and the inappropriateness of putting canonizing our military and worshiping them as gods on earth. It's
also, like, there are facets we have missed, like the history of black athletes protesting and why that makes white people so uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, we're going to be talking about this one for at least a little while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Accidentally took Keith's call there, so I missed a few moments of what you said there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to cover.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to cover. We're going to try to do it. We're going to try to do it in a way that breaks it down for folks, that it's both engaging and not insulting.
Mm-hmm.
At least to people's intelligence. I mean, some people may be insulted. Fuck them if they don't like it.
I suppose a disclaimer is at hand here. We are going to have a certain perspective, and that is a white male focus, because that's all what we are.
Right.
I mean, and most of us are heterosexuals. Some people here are bi. So
I'm in the latter camp.
Yeah. So, we are not going to have certain perspectives, because they are literally impossible to us. But, we will try to use, our, to be respectful of, the marginalized in society. Is
based on pretty much what we've learned and what we know.
Yeah.
Exactly. I will try to get at the very least, instead, in lieu of guests, I may have guest commentators who will come in. I'm going to start looking through the political arenas for heavy hitters and people who might want to, who might be interested in having another platform that they can use to talk about their ideas and stuff. I mean, we always joked about having William Shatner on the other show, but he'll never do that because he doesn't do podcasts. But don't be surprised if one day we have Rachel Maddow on the show.
Oh goodness!
Not impossible at this rate.
So you want to talk about Trump for an hour? Where do I sign?
Pretty much. So yeah, we're gonna try to keep it a little tighter, though. It's gonna be the four of us talking, and then everybody else is gonna still be there, picking up questions and feeding them to us, because we're not gonna be able to sit there and just hover over the chat at all times. It's kind of distracting when you're trying to type at your listeners while trying to speak to them at the same as well. So.
Also, we'll try not to make it the old Trump all the time show, because
Oh no, there's plenty of problems with liberals as well.
Oh yeah.
Hold up. We don't have time today.
I guess I should have mentioned that Kevin here has many axes to grind against Bernie Sanders.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Hold it.
I know. I'll save it. I'll book
I got a call holding here, so I'm gonna use this as a moment for our exodus this evening. But that was definitely a good start and somewhat inspiring. So I'm looking forward to it. Next week we'll have a slightly more casual podcast. I'm sure we'll just talk about stuff artsy fartsy and stuff and see. I'll have a report on how my art career is going.
We may have a guest next week. I don't know. That's up to the petty fan here.
All right. Well, if that happens, of course, we'll put a report or something on the website letting everybody know. But until then, this is your host, Mac Paladin, on behalf of the crew at Moonhawk Studios Presents and the future last news desk on the left, saying thanks for listening and stay safe out there, kids.